So welcome Akhilesh ji. Good to have you in
Thank
this
you.
session. As you had
Thank you.
already introduced that you shall be conducted on cyber law,
Aji,
we request you to start. Hanji? Hanji?
2 minutes दो एक बार फेसबुक पे कर दूंगा ही.
Okay, 2 minutes.
I have been given as Cyber Laws and Information Technology Act 2000. So as of now, the cyber laws, we understand that law which is related to computer networks or computer systems. The only thing which we understand is that these days in which we are living, we all understand that if somebody follows us in the physical world, we are feeling very bad about it. But if somebody follows us on Facebook or some other social networking website, we feel very happy कि हाँ यार हमारे likes बढ़ रहे हैं. But the problem which has taken place or which has arisen is that cyber criminals or cyber terrorists are increasing, and as soon as the technology is launched, they are technology breakers also. So who are committing such type of crimes, sometimes which are beyond the imagination also. So today we'll be touching some of the legal parts with with respect to the issues which have arisen, keeping offenses and liabilities, because Information Technology Act is itself a legislation. So we'll be touching the few of the areas with respect to like chapter 1, chapter 2, and then the civil liability and the offenses and the penalties. So starting off with this, like this is a, as far as the Information Technology Act is concerned. Before that, let us have a brief introduction of what cybercrime is and few of the definitions with respect to the topics which we'll be doing ahead, like World Wide Web and cyberspace. So earlier people were not connected, but slowly and slowly they were connected with the information. A time came when people were connected with each other. So nowadays everything is connected. Now everyone is online. So basically, we are trying to say that we are approaching towards a paperless world. So in a paperless world, once everything is online, there has to be a law, there has to be a mechanism, legal mechanism, which is also covering not only the citizens but also netizens. For the reason that the people who are using net or internet regularly, including all of us, there should be some law for the reason which should govern that, and there should be an electronic format of record for retention of records and for the safety of that record also. So there is no legal definition or statutory definition of cybercrime, but cyber means something which is related to computer or computer network or computer system, and crime, as we all know, means an act which is punishable by law. So in other words, cybercrime is that crime in which computer or its network is used as a weapon to commit the crime. So as far as the definition of cybercrime is concerned, if at all we say that cybercrime has increased or decreased, is something subject to the kind of crime which has taken place or depending on the facts of the case. Now, apart from this, we should see that the basic element of a cyber crime would be computers. So how, in a normal parlance, we should understand that how a computer can be used, because computer has the following categories if we define under cyber crime. So computer can be used as a target. As a target, for example, if there is a crime committed for data theft, then the computer is to be considered as a target. If the computer is to be considered as instrumentality of a crime, then let us take an example of credit card fraud. Now, if we go by the third category, computer as an individual to commit crime, then in that case, cases like child pornography and drug trafficking online will also come into role play. Now, last is crimes associated with the prevalence of computers. So crimes associated with the prevalence of computers are like, earlier there was copyright violation crime, and now also it is there. But with the prevalence of computers and with the advent of technology, there is a crime of software piracy also coming into picture. So these are the developments which have slowly and steadily taken place. in which the different platforms are developed. And basically, what is the purpose of bringing, or what is the purpose of controlling the or formulating the law with regard to controlling the cybercrime, is that the cases are increasing every day. Now, at least as a lawyer, we should understand that rather than going into the statutory language, any case which we come across these days, let us say any matrimonial case which we come across these days, one way or the other, the evidence or the involvement of any Facebook ID or any other social media platform, or chat discussions on WhatsApp, or SMS being sent, or any video or any call detail records, all these issues are now becoming one of the frontline mode of evidence in which even the police is using, and even we in the court of law are trying to prove the cases by using such mechanisms. So next is the cyberspace and World Wide Web. These two definitions are relevant here. Cyberspace, it is the virtual computer world and an electronic medium used to form a global computer network to facilitate online communication. So basically, cyberspace is that area in which it allows its users, like for playing games, for sharing information, for creating social groups. But as far as World Wide Web is concerned, World Wide Web developed in 1989 by Tim Berners-Lee, and we understand www. It is also known as, it is basically an information space where documents and other web resources are identified by uniform resource locators, interlinked by hypertext links and accessible via internet. So this is the definition of cyberspace and World Wide Web. Now, before proceeding further, it is important to understand that what are the concepts which are required for understanding, and without which the cyber law concept cannot be understood. So basically, the concept of e-governance came into picture when the Information Technology Act was also enacted. So cyber law was introduced in India with prime objective to provide legal recognition. To provide legal recognition to the transactions, not only to the transactions, but also to the electronic data and other means of electronic communication. So this was the main reason that why we needed, this can be called as the objective for which the Information Technology Act was also to be brought into picture. Now, starting before e-governance, the concept of e-commerce. Now, e-commerce, we all understand, as the term says, that e-commerce these days is one such platform without which no business activity is fulfilled. If any businessman has to do a business, it might be an old shop running, or it might be a new startup. E-commerce platform is one of such platforms in which we are going to rely upon somewhere or the other. So internet has become the dial tone for doing every business today. These days, everything has gone online, and all the aspects of the life are also affected through internet. So all activities are done through the medium of internet, like online shopping is there, e-ticketing, and we all are also using all these activities. And one of such platforms in which, like, we are also using the platform or the mechanism of the e-commerce. Like, I would share an incident with you. Last week, there was a university in Haryana who was conducting such type of online class. So once the online classes were going on, they had almost 50 to 60 participants in that class, and some of the people who had their this videos not workable, videos were stopped. They started abusing one way or the other to each other, and it was basically recorded. So once it was recorded, so subsequently that university lodged a claim with the cybercrime cell of that particular district, and subsequently an action was taken against the people who have done so. So such kind of cases which are absolutely unexpected are also coming up, because one way or the other you have to see that how the technology is advancing and what is the legal mechanism behind it. So as far as the concept of e-commerce is concerned, section 10A provides for the validity of the e-contracts. Further, the information technology, that is the reasonable security practice and procedures and sensitive personal data information. Rules 2011. Rules have also been defined. Information Technology Act also has the rules of 2011. And the section 43A of Information Technology Act together provides a structure and guidelines for the data in India. So there is a possibility of infringement subject to trademark, copyright, or patent on an online platform. So unless an agreement between the parties specifically provides the IP rights, because of the content given on the website is mostly managed by the third party. So for example, in an e-commerce platform, like for example, sometimes we get a case that the agreement or a contract was signed between the parties was electronic in nature. So it will fall under the definition of section 10A, section 10 of the Information Technology Act. So as far as this is concerned, for example, if somebody has done an agreement, A company has done an agreement with B company, but still the content of the website is being provided by the third party. So in that case, the content of the third party, if it is copied or if it is pasted from some other websites, then he or she is to be penalized, or he or she can be put under the scan of law, for the reason that what kind of that the content which is already copyrighted or which is already trademark, or which was already the technology which was shown, which was to be patented on an online platform, cannot be utilized without the permission of the owner. So now these are this is the slide which has different web applications which are being used by us. So next is the concept of e-governance. Now the concept of e-governance is the concept which is defined under Chapter 3 of the Information Technology Act. Now Chapter 3 of the Information Technology Act of Information Technology Act 2000, Amendment Act 2000, it deals with section 4 to section 10A. So what the concept of e-governance, for example, like we all know that the central government has also initiated a project called Bhumi project. Bhumi project, in which, or it might be named at some other project in any of the other states, but that land revenue records can be checked from the online mode. So as far as one such project is concerned, like Madhya Pradesh government started Gyan Doot project. So the central government has started a project of Digital India. So these are the projects which are initiated and started under the scheme of e-governance. So e-governance is that where any law provides an information or any matter which shall be in writing, which shall be typed, or which shall be in the printed form. In that case, the legal recognition provided to those electronic records fall under the category of section 4. Then under the topic of electronic governments, the legal recognition is given to electronic signatures. Under section 5, legal recognition is also given to the electronic signatures. So then they explain where the electronic signatures can be used, in which government agencies and in which government departments electronic signatures can be used. That is defined as section 6 of the Information Technology Act. And then is section 7 that would be relevant for the because the provision contains retention of electronic records. So once you say that for the retention of electronic records, then that it includes that where any law provides for documents, records, or any information that shall be retained for the specific period. In that case, section 7 of Information Technology Act under the chapter of e-governance comes into role play. For the reason that when the records are retained in electronic format, then the section 7 is to be seen. As far as further the last concept of electronic governance, it also includes the validity of contracts. As I stated earlier, validity of contracts formed through electronic means. So as far as the electronic governance is concerned, one of the best benefits of electronic governance is that it gives a transparency between the citizens of the nation and the government. Now, as far as the earlier example is concerned, I again say that as far as the example of Gyan Doot project by Madhya Pradesh government for taking the common entrance test, and like Bhumi projects or payment of bills to the electricity department, so all these form a part of the e-governance. E-governance aims to make interaction between the government and the citizen more friendly, convenient, transparent, and less expensive. So now next is that e-governance, e-commerce, and what are the type of cases or what is the first step which we should follow with regard to the police authorities. Now, before reading this slide, there is a case regarding this slide which started off, which was handled by my office also later. It is a live example which is happening in our society these days. So what happened that there was a farewell party going on in the school, and from that farewell party there was a boy who had a digital camera, and in that digital camera he had clicked photographs of the various students of his class. So once so he clicked those photographs, and he specifically clicked number of photographs of a specific classmate. So while uploading those photographs on Facebook, he created a fake profile, and he uploaded those photographs of the students through his normal Facebook profile. But from that fake Facebook profile, he morphed the photograph of that girl by showing obscenity of the below body, and the face of that girl was depicted there. So he morphed those photographs and he just published it on the internet via Facebook. So when the parents and the teachers of the school or the other students came to know that this thing has happened, the parents one way or the other, when they contacted me also, the first reason or first suggestion I told them that you please go and lodge a complaint before the police authorities, because now every district has a cybercrime cell, so is your district as well. So you kindly go and lodge and complaint before the police authorities. But rather than going to the police authorities, they said that we are not going to the police authorities for the reason that our daughter will be called to the police station, and once all these things happen, the life of our daughter will also be ruined. So in that case, the kind of scenario which I understood on that through that particular case is that people are so much scared if such type of crimes are taking place in the society, that they are not even going to lodge a complaint for one reason or the other, suiting in the interest of their own family members as well. So for a normal crime, they can go and say that such type of incident has happened and the police can lodge an FIR. But if such a crime is to be reported, they have to show the screenshots, they have to show the images, they have to show the Facebook profile ID. So all these things are also going to ruin, or I would say tarnish, the image of the daughter of that particular family as well. So people are somewhere or the other hesitating, and they are also not sure of the role of the police authorities, what the role police authorities are going to play if such type of crimes are committed. So primarily when the offense takes place, the case is reported to police authorities, as we all know, as per their jurisdiction. Now earlier in India, very less complaints were lodged, but nowadays, due to awareness and spread of technology, number of cases are coming up. Most of the cases in India have cybercrime cells, which are under supervision of senior police officials, and investigation is done by technical experts. Now one thing, as far as the IT Act is concerned, under section 80, the powers have been given to the police officer not below the rank of inspector or by a central government officer in his behalf, which may enter public place for search and arrest without warrant any person found to be reasonably suspected of having committed such a crime. So as far as section 80 is concerned, section 80 is it falls under chapter 13, which says that what is the power of a police officer and other officers to enter and search if such type of any crime is concerned. So as far as section 80 is concerned, section 80 earlier, no doubt it was only with regard to the word which was used for deputy superintendent of police. But with the amendment on 27th of October 2009, the word of DSP, Deputy Superintendent of Police, was changed to was amended to inspector. So now the powers were earlier only given to the DSP for the investigation of any kind of cybercrime, but now the powers are also with the inspector. So it is not that only that only a senior police official is required to investigate the matter. Even an inspector has been given the power to investigate the matter as per section 80. So now proceeding further with some of the offenses. These are the offenses which we all know, that child pornography, or we are hearing them these days, like online fraud is there, cyber defamation is there. Now one explanation or one change which is relevant here is that we all know that 499 and section 500 of IPC deals with defamation. But how we correlate it with cyber defamation, that is to be seen here. Like terrorist activities, no doubt there are separate acts for dealing with the terrorist activities. But as far as cyber terrorism is concerned, how and why cyber terrorism has been specifically defined under the Information Technology Act. So these are the kind of offenses which have been explained or which have been defined under chapter 11 with regard to the various type of offenses which are taking place. Now, before moving directly to the crimes, it is important to understand the preamble of the act and the jurisdictional scope of the act and some of the relevant definitions which have been defined in the Information Technology Act. So as far as the preamble of the IT Act is concerned, preamble of information technology is to give legal transaction carried out by electronic data interchange. It gives framework to the concepts like e-governance and e-commerce legally. Now, Information Technology Act 2000 provides us the basic definitions required in the law and further lays down the basic offenses and the penalties. So this is a very random kind of point which I've shared with you for the reason that the definitions have been defined under section 2. And before proceeding with section 2, section 1 is important with respect to the aspect of the extent of this act. So as far as section 1 is concerned, section 1, it deals with the short, as most of this, every statute starts with short title, extent, commencement and application of the Information Technology Act 2000. So in that, the section 1 subclause 2 reads that it shall extend to whole of India and save as otherwise provided in this act. It applies also to any offense or contravention thereunder committed outside India by any person as well. So somewhere or the other, this happens to be for the reason that because as a lawyer you can only read something or you can only understand something if you come across something as a case study. So I had a case in which a newly married couple was there. A newly married couple, they were married in India. So, but then they finally settled somewhere in Australia. So the husband and wife, they reached India around after 2 years of marriage again. So once they reached India, they were enjoying with their family, and suddenly the wife receives an email of some very old photographs with some earlier friend on her email. So she ignored these emails, and lastly, when she ignored these emails, she again after a few days received those emails. So once the emails were checked, they came to know that these emails are being sent by an unknown email address, we filed a complaint before the police authorities, and the police authorities, after getting down to the IP address, informed that the email ID pertains to somebody in Portugal. So during the investigation of this case, the husband of the that lady also tried to contact the police authorities by saying that there is nobody in Portugal in my link or in my wife's link, that how this IP server you're talking about belongs to Portugal. You please confirm and you please try to check it again. So even after checking for the second time, even for the second email which was received, it was he belonged to Portugal only. So lastly, when they came to know that that why these photographs are being sent from Portugal, they checked it again, and in the meantime again they received the third email, and in that third email, even the photographs of the marriage of the husband and wife, which were basically a photographs which belong to the family only, they were these photographs were also published in the or sent in the email box. So once they again checked it up and they again tried to understand, then both the profiles of the husband and the wife were also investigated by the police officers, and from that they came to know that one of the close friend of the wife is now staying in Portugal, and he has taken these personal photographs which were published on Facebook from the Facebook ID of both husband and wife, and he has sent these photographs, and now he is trying to because in every email, the worst part was in every email he used to write that I am an unknown person, I know that I know your family, I have all the photographs of your personal photographs, and I will morph these photographs and share it ahead on Facebook and spoil your matrimonial life if you are not going to pay me such and such kind of amount. So when such kind of cases came into picture, the police once investigated. So once the Portugal link came from the Facebook side, then they confirmed that that is the person for the reason that he was contacted. But now the part was that the person was staying in Portugal and the complaint was lodged in India. So how to handle such type of complaints? What is to be done? So the complaint was kept in abeyance for the reason that the person who is not having under the because for the reason that whether we have a treaty with Portugal or not, or whether such complaints can be taken care of by that country or not, or how can that police take a cognizance of such a matter. Then the section 1 subclause 2 came into role play for the reason that we informed the police officials that section 2 explains that it shall extend to the whole of India the applicability of the Information Technology Act, and otherwise provided in this act, it applies also to any offense or contravention thereunder committed outside India by any person as well. So it not only covers the persons who are within the territory of India, it also covers or extended to the persons who have committed such a crime outside India as well. So next is the definition part. Now earlier there were very few definitions in the Information Technology Act 2000, but in the amendment of Information Technology Act on 27th of October 2009, the some of the major definitions which were included. Now if we say that the definition of computer, for example, if we say that we need a definition of computer, we need a definition of cyber cafe, a definition of cyber security. So these are some of the definitions which are given or which are enshrined in the Information Technology Act under section 2, because it explains that how the relevant definitions are there. For example, the definition of communication device. Earlier, before the amendment, there was no definition of the term called communication device. But now under section 2HA, a proper definition or a statutory definition of communication device is given, which includes cell phones, which includes cell phones, personal digital assistants, uses gadgets, and it also includes the device from which we are communicating, from which we are sending, or which we are also transmitting any data. So these are some of the relevant definitions for which section 2 would be relevant. Now section 3. Now section 3 provides the concept of authentication of electronic records by affixing digital signatures. Now, for example, earlier there was a concept of digital signatures only in the Information Technology Act, but subsequently with the amendment, there came a concept of electronic signature. So electronic signature, the concept came after amendment, and under section 3A of the Information Technology Act, it explains the concept of electronic signature as well. So now is the penalties and the compensation part. Now this is the civil liability under which how the compensatory aspect can also be deal with, and this act is very and this section, as far as the Information Technology Act is concerned, is considered to be the heart and soul, for the reason that the penalties and the compensation regarding the computer related offenses and the compensation for the damage of computer or any other particular offense has to be covered under section 43. Section 43, if any person without the permission, if any person is dealing or is without the permission of the owner or any other person who is in charge of the computer or that computer system or that computer network, accesses or secures access to such a computer, in that case it is not only accesses the computer, it only accesses or secures access to such a computer network. Then subsequently they say downloads, copies or extracts any particular data from the computer. Then if at all he or she introduces any contaminant or a malware, or damages or causes any computer, it may cause any disruption to the computer, it may cause any denial of access. For example, in the case of cyber terrorism, even if denying an access to a website is also for taking the sovereignty of the country away, in that case also you are liable for the compensatory aspect also. So for example, if so all these things, for example, if it further covers that not only the accessible part, introduction of the contaminant, denial or causing of access, it also covers the aspect of stealing and concealing of source code. So stealing and concealing of source code, and also destroying and deleting any particular information which is there in a computer or a computer resource, which may diminish the value or utility, or which may affect any person with regard to that. So section 43 has various steps in which how the compensatory aspect can be used. It provides for the penalty and compensation for damage to the computer system by any person who does not have any permission, who is not the owner, who is not even in charge of that computer system or computer network. So further, section 43A. Section 43A, it deals with the compensation for the failure to protect data. This specifically includes a body corporate possessing, dealing and handling sensitive personal data or information in a computer resource which it owns, controls and operates. In that case, section 43A is what is to be dealt with, for the reason that 43A deals with the protection failure to, if somebody has failed to protect a particular data, if a body corporate has failed to protect the data, and a body corporate in this particularly includes a company, it also includes a firm, it also includes a sole proprietorship or any other association of individuals engaged in any kind of professional activity. So in that case, we will, because we have to understand that a body corporate includes all these things, and then only if at all we say that how they are to be compensated, how any person is to be compensated if their data is not protected from that particular company. So that the penal aspect and the compensatory aspect is defined under section 43 and 43A. Now, with regard to this section, 46 is the section which provides for the penalties, compensation, and the adjudicatory aspect. So the adjudicatory aspect of that particular of Information Technology Act is given under section 46. So as far as section 46 is concerned, the section 46 subclause 1A would be relevant for the reason that the amount which is mentioned in this particular statute, if as far as my knowledge is concerned, there is no statute which defines for such a huge compensation amount that is to the tune of 5 crore rupees. So I would just read that section 46 1A. It reads, the adjudicating officer appointed under subsection 1 shall exercise jurisdiction to adjudicate matters in which the claim for the injury or damage does not exceed 5 crore rupees. So that is the aspect of the section 46 which provides for the adjudicatory aspect. And in this, every adjudicating officer shall have the powers of civil court which are conferred on Cyber Appellate Tribunal under section 2 of section 58 as well. So this is with regard to the penalties and compensatory aspect under section 43, 43A and 46. I have intentionally left the part of Cyber Appellate Tribunal for the reason that because it is a detailed topic in itself. So now this offenses and penalties I consider as a little more important rather than that aspect. We should know the kind of offenses and the offenses which are being dealt under the Information Technology Act. So to starting off with section 65. Section 65 is the offense which deals with tampering with the computer source documents. I have just tried to form it in a tabular form for the reason that it also shows the penalties and it also shows the fine and the imprisonment which the Information Technology Act provides for under separate offenses and penalties. So the concept of the various offenses under Information Technology Act are defined under chapter 11. So starting off with section 65, that is tampering with the computer source documents. As far as the statutory definition is of section 65 is that whoever intentionally, knowingly conceals, destroys, alters, or knowingly causes another to conceal, destroy, or alter any computer source code used for computer program, for computer system, or computer network, then in that case, here the offender shall be punishable with imprisonment for 3 years and with fine which may extend up to 2 lakh rupees. I'm sorry, it is 2.5 lakhs I have mentioned here. It is to be 2 lakh rupees. Now further, section 66. Section 66. Earlier, section 66 was only known as the offense of hacking, but with the again with the amendment which took place on 27th of October 2009, it was amended into computer related offenses, which means that it was a broader term was used and the offenses were segregated into 6 different categories from 66A to 66F. So 66 section is that it again has to be read along with section 43 for the reason that if any person does any act referred under section 43 of Information Technology Act by doing it dishonestly and fraudulently, then he shall be punishable with an imprisonment which may extend to 3 years or in which the fine is rupees 5 lakhs or with both. Now further, the computer related offenses have been divided into various categories. So first is section 66A, that is punishment for sending offensive messages through communication service. So in this, the imprisonment is to be extended for 3 years with fine. And as far as the punishment for sending offensive messages are concerned through communication, any person who sends by the means of computer resource or by any other communication device which falls under the category as defined under section 2 HA of the definition of communication device, then in that case, if it has any menacing character or if it is grossly offensive in nature, in that case the offender is liable. It may be an, it also includes electronic email, it also including messages which causes annoyance or which misleads somebody, or specifically as quoted in the statutory wording, misleads the addressee or recipient, then in that case the punishment has been given, which may extend to 3 years and further with fine. The next is 66B. 66B defines as punishment for dishonestly receiving stolen computer resource or computer device. Section 66B, that whoever dishonestly receives or retains any computer resource or any communication device, knowing or having reason to believe that the same was to be stolen computer resource or communication device, then in that case, if at all the person who is committing the offense has received and has retained that particular communication device or computer resource, then the offender is liable for an imprisonment up to 3 years and a fine up to rupees 1 lakh. Then comes the offense of identity theft under section 66C. Then under section 66C, the punishment of identity theft is given for which may extend up to 3 years and fine is for 1 lakh. As far as identity theft is concerned, in this case, if any person particularly fraudulently or dishonestly uses a password or any unique identification code or any you can say it also includes electronic signatures, if these features are used against any person for fraudulent or by dishonest means, then in that case the offender is liable to be committed for the offense of identity theft. Section 66D, punishment for cheating by personation by using computer resource. This offense is again, the imprisonment is for 3 years and the fine is up to rupees 1 lakh. And then next is 66E. 66E is punishment for the violation of privacy. So in this case, if whoever intentionally or knowingly captures, publishes and transmit, the definition, it is relevant for us to understand this does not only includes the capturing part, it includes the knowingly captures, transmits and as well as publishes the image of a private area of any person without his or her consent, then it is said that he is liable under the circumstances for violating the privacy of that person. So the offense has specifically been kept punishable for 3 years and which may extend to fine up to 2 lakh rupees. So after 66E, there is 66F. So 66F is the offense of cyber terrorism. So punishment for cyber terrorism. So we have heard the term called terrorism, but as far as cyber terrorism is concerned, cyber terrorism is when somebody uses an electronic medium or any electronic mode for which may with an intent to threaten the unity, the sovereignty and the integrity of India, then he's liable for the committing the offense of cyber terrorism, because he is striking the terror to the people by using different electronic modes. So one of the major modes is like by introducing a contaminant in any government official website. or let us say by denying or causing denial of access to of a particular website, or to a authorized computer resource, or to authorized computer, then in that case the person is liable to be committing the offense of cyber terrorism. But in that case, the necessary ingredient of this section is that the nature of the offense should be that it should be committed with an intent to threaten the integrity, unity, and security and sovereignty of India. So next is the offense of section 67. Section 67, it includes the concept of obscenity, and I would say the concept of pornography. The offenses, how the offenses under pornography are to be termed and how are they to be taken ahead. So section 67, punishment for publishing or transmitting obscene material in electronic form. So the first conviction, imprisonment is up to 3 years and the fine is up to 5 lakhs. And for the second conviction, the imprisonment is up to 5 years under section 67 and the fine is up to rupees 10 lakhs. So again, as far as the definition of under section 66E was concerned, now this is for the section 67. The three ingredients are basic in nature, which says publishes, transmits, or causes to be published. So it has to be seen that whoever publishes or transmits or causes to be published or transmits in the electronic form any material which is lascivious in nature or appeals to be in the prurient interest which may tend to deprave and corrupt persons who are likely having regard to the relevant circumstances to read, to see, and to hear the matter contained or embodied in it. So in that case, the offense of section 67 is to be committed by that person. Now, the 67 has been explained in two broader categories. One is 67A, 67B. 67A is with regard to the punishment for publishing the content in sexual explicit act, and 67B is with regard to child pornography. So whenever there is an offense of any offense of pornography related to children, in that case 67 to be read with 67B will come into role play. But as far as the other section is concerned, 67A, that is for the publishing or transmitting of material containing sexually explicit act in electronic form. So 67A, the imprisonment is again for 5 years in the first conviction, and fine is up to 10 lakhs.
अखिलेश थोड़ा सा पास कर लेंगे ना, टाइम भी हो रहा है.
अच्छा ठीक है, no problem.
Thank you.
And second conviction, imprisonment up to 7 years and fine up to 10 lakhs. So as far as the this 67B is concerned, as I told you, 67B is concerned with the is related to the children, can be broadly called as the offense of child pornography, which is explained in section 67B. So in this, the imprisonment is up to 5 years and the fine is up to 10 lakhs. And for the second conviction, the imprisonment is up to 7 years and again the fine is up to 10 lakhs. Now next is section 67C, deliberate failure by the intermediary to preserve and retain the information specified by the central government. So as far as section 67C is concerned, it involves the intermediary in between. So intermediary shall preserve and retain the information which is required. Now further, section 68, deliberate failure to comply with the order and the directions given by the controller. The controller may by order direct a certifying authority or any such employee with such authority to take such measures which are relevant and for carrying on activities which are specified under the act. So in this, the offense, if the offense is committed, the imprisonment is for a term not exceeding 2 years or with a fine of rupees 1 lakh or with both. Now next is section 69, failure to extend facilities to decrypt the information to government notified agency. So this is section 69. 69 is power to issue directions of interception or monitoring or decryption of any information through any computer resource. and it defines further 69A3. 69A3 is power to issue directions for blocking for public access, specifically with regard to the websites and through any public information. So punishment for failure by intermediary to comply with the order of the notified agency to block websites. Then the imprisonment is for which can be extended for 7 years or with fine. Next is 69B. 69B is deliberate failure by the intermediary to provide the notified agency with the technical assistance or online access of computer resource. The next is section 70. Section 70 is unauthorized access. This is the last slide for the offenses part. The unauthorized access to protected system directly or indirectly affects the facility critical information infrastructure, and under section 70, 70A and 70B, there are two type of agencies which have been created. One is the National Nodal Agency and the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team under section 70. Now further section 71, this is the punishment for misrepresentation. Misrepresentation is that whoever makes any misrepresentation or suppresses any material fact from the controller, I would say. So then it falls under the penalty for misrepresentation. Misrepresentation that from the controller certifying authority for obtaining license of electronic signature certificate. When somebody has to obtain an electronic certificate, electronic signature certificate, if he or she is not has suppressed some information which is material to be informed to that particular certifying authority, then in that case they are liable for the penalty of misrepresentation. Next is section 72. 72 is punishment for the breach of confidentiality and privacy disclosures of information in breach of lawful contract. So in this, the imprisonment is for a term of 3 years and a fine is up to rupees 5 lakhs. Now these are some of the important offences under the Information Technology Act. Now next is the concept of electronic evidence. So electronic evidence is the concept because once the amendment took place and with the virtue of introduction of Information Technology Act 2000, there was an amendment in Evidence Act and other acts as well. So like in Evidence Act, the amendments were made to certain provisions for admitting evidence by way of electronic records. Explanation of section 3, let us say for an example, was edited to incorporate all electronic records in the definition of documentary evidences. So for the concept of electronic evidence, section 65B of the Evidence Act is relevant. And let us say for that an image on pen drive and a photo clicked on the phone or a message in a phone memory can be termed as one of the concept of or one of the examples of electronic evidence. So next is pornography. This we have earlier discussed. I had made some slides to be explained in detail. So these are the offences which we have earlier discussed. So this is the one of the concept which is emerging these days. Cryptocurrency is a digital currency which is used in the black world for the purpose of trading. These currencies are difficult to counterfeit because of their safety feature. So as far as Bitcoin trading is one such example of the concept of cryptocurrency. So next is the online banking frauds. For example, if we have a phishing scam or we have a spam email or we have a spoofing email in which money is illegally transferred from one person's account to another person's account, then also it falls under the category of Information Technology Act, and you can also take the recourse of the offences for the punishment and for section 43 as well. Next is cyber terrorism. Cyber terrorism we have as discussed earlier in that particular offence in the under section 67F. Next is the offence of identity theft. Identity theft, in this a person uses another person's personal identifying information as it was explained earlier through that particular section, their name, address, credit card number, bank account details, without their consent to commit a crime which involves banking fraud, stealing money, or getting some other benefits. So these are some of the crimes which have been explained, or which are some of the offences which have been explained in the the concept of Information Technology Act. Further, there are few of the case laws. Now, this was one of the first case laws of Avnish Bajaj versus State. As I've mentioned, the brief facts of the case. This is also known as Bazi.com case, the famous Bazi.com case, in which a student of from IIT Kharagpur, he had sold an MMS of video clip for the sale at rupees 125 per clip on the website of Bazi.com. So he had posted a video clip of DPS RK schoolgirls having fun. So it was illegal to sell pornographic video in India. So therefore, FIR was lodged against the concerned person and also against the CEO of Bazi.com. So the Delhi High Court observed that a prima facie case for the offence under section 292A and 292D IPC is made out against the website, both in respect of listing and the video clip respectively. The court, as far as particularly this case was concerned, the court observed that by not having appropriate filters that could have detected the words in the listing or the pornographic content of what was being offered for sale, the website ran a risk of having imputed to it the knowledge that such an object, which in fact is obscene, and thus it held that as per the strict liability imposed by section 292, knowledge of listing can be imputed to the company as well. So, however, this because this case because Avnish Bajaj, being the CEO of Bazi.com, filed a question petition before the High Court, in which it was further held that, however, as far as Avnish Bajaj is concerned, the court had, since the Indian Penal Code does not recognize the concept of automatic criminal liability attaching to the director, where the company is also an accused, the petitioner can be discharged in section 292 and 294 of FPC, but not the other accused. But when they read section 67, they along with section 85 of Information Technology Act, the court, however, observed that a prima facie case was made out against Avnish Bajaj also, since the law recognizes that the deemed criminal liability of the directors, even where the company is not arrayed as an accused. So this was one of the cases which is mostly quoted with regard to the cybercrime cases. Now, next is that there are two cases of child pornography cases. I have just written a brief of these two cases for the reason that I'll quote this Kids XXX group case first of all. So Kids XXX group case, there was a person in Hyderabad who had created a WhatsApp group with the name of this Kids XXX group case, and he was getting the videos on his WhatsApp group from the countries which are mentioned here, like US, China, New Zealand, Mexico, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and he was sharing them, uploading, downloading, watching such porn videos. So, and he was also earning money, he was receiving payment. Now, as far as the first case is concerned also, this is also a very highlighted case. Mr. William, when Interpol discovered that somebody was uploading photos of child pornography and was receiving payment, so subsequently he was arrested in in Chennai. So as far as Kids XXX group case is concerned, we should understand that one thing is to be seen, that the group members of that particular case were included from the countries like US, China, New Zealand, Mexico, Afghanistan. So the gravity and the heinousness of the crime also goes to the extent that there are various countries, that the people from all across the globe are united to commit such type of crimes. So these are the cases. Now, next case of Cyber Lotto case. So in Andhra Pradesh, there was one person named Kola Mohan. He created a website and an email address on the internet with address eurolottery@usa.net, which shows his own name as beneficiary of £12.5 million in Euro lottery. So after getting this confirmation with the email address, a Telugu newspaper published this as news. So he gathered huge sums from the public as well as from the banks. The fraud came into light only when a check amounting rupees 1.73 million discounted by him with Andhra Bank got dishonored. So next is the case of Manish Kathuria versus Ritu Kohli case. So this case is known as the first cyber stalking case. There are a few cases in which the citation I have not mentioned. I'll definitely share either this PPT or with regard to the proper citations which I have, but in slide I couldn't write everything. So Manish Kathuria versus Ritu Kohli. So this is the first case of cyber stalking. So Ritu Kohli, a friend of her husband, gave her phone number and name on a chat site for immoral purposes. This is not immoral, I would say. This is immoral purposes. So computer expert Kohli was able to trace the culprit, and now and subsequently the person was tried under the offense of outraging the modesty of a woman under section 509 of IPC. So next is the cyber defamation case, the offense of cyber defamation. Earlier was cyber defamation case. This is mouthshut.com case. This was the first case in which which was done by my office, through which I came into the knowledge of little bit with regard to or interest in cybercrime cases. This is a mouthshut.com case. In this case, at the first instance, the offense was not related to, had nothing to do with information technology, but subsequently it had. There was a car dealer in Amritsar, and he had sold a car to one of his customers. The customer came for service, and there was some problem in the car. So the normally, as we get calls from the service station person called the customer and asked that what is that these are the things which are need to be repaired, and the charges will be 35 to 37,000. So will you be able to pay? So without even hearing it properly, he said, all right, fine, I have no problem, you please do it, and whenever I'll come, I'll see to it what is to be paid and what is the final billing of that thing. So once after 3 days, he went back to claim the car. The company told him that this is what needs to be paid. So he started fighting, and the quarrel became so high that he ultimately slapped one of the employees of the car dealing company as well. So up till now, there is nothing to do with information technology. That man went back and wrote a blog on mouthshut.com against that dealer. So once that blog was written, so that blog was almost there for 3 to 4 months, and subsequently a customer came to the director of the car dealing company saying that there is, after 4 to 5 months, that there is something written on this website against your company, against your family, and everything against your car dealing agency in an abusive language. So he took that screenshot, and after taking that screenshot, we complained to the cybercrime cell, because that case with regard to criminal law was not difficult, because the offender was not unknown. He had clearly written his on his blog ABCD, and his address was also given, so we could figure out the dispute, because in the meantime he had already filed a consumer complaint against that company. So then we lodged the FIR against that particular accused for writing a defamatory blog against the company, and further also filed a civil suit for damages, which is still pending. So such are the kind of cyber defamation cases. Now, last slide. These are the relevant cases, some of the landmark cases. That is the case of Shreya Singhal versus Union of India, 2013, volume 12, SCC 73, which was pronounced by the Honorable Supreme Court by 2 judges bench of the bench of Justice Sambeshwar and Justice Nariman, in which they pronounced that 66A is relating to the restriction of online speech and freedom to speech was struck down. So next is the case of Sonu versus State of Haryana. In this case, the concept of call detail records was explained, and prior to this case of Sonu versus State of Haryana, there was a case of Afzal Guru, that is in the name of Navjot Singh Sandhu versus State. So this was an Afzal Guru matter in which the electronic records or the concept of electronic evidence came into being, and subsequently it was explained in Sonu versus State of Haryana. But the judgment of Afzal Guru, Navjot Singh Sandhu case was overruled by the judgment of Anwar PV versus PK Bashir, 2014, volume 10, SEC 473, which was delivered by a 3 judges bench. That decision held that any electronic record, this is relevant for the reason that we all are practicing, and how do we see to it that how electronic record is to be produced in the court of law is something very relevant. That the decision held that for any electronic record of a secondary nature, such as printed pages comprising CDR, to be considered admissible in evidence, it must carry certification as prescribed by Section 65B(4) of the Evidence Act. So, as Section 65B of the Evidence Act explains the concept of electronic evidence. So, Anwar, PV versus PK Bashir is the law which is to be considered if any concept of electronic evidence is to be seen. So this was the last slide from my side. So as if now the time has taken, and I have also just tried to run through. I think the material was maybe more or maybe less, but this is what I could gather to address you all.
Great going, Akhilesh. That was a good insight. If you've concluded, we can open the question answers. Anyone?
Yes.
Should I start with it?
Yes.
Akhilesh,
You already said
I'm
let's-
sorry, it is for 6 to 7 minutes. You already continue day after. Relax. I have tried to conclude after that. I said let's skip
No,
the slides.
I was thinking that you are on approximately 17th slide and you have approximately 38th slide, so we could divide it in 2 days.
जी
But
हाँ
then
जी,
you
मेरे-
suddenly
चलेगा,
concluded
चलेगा.
only. So,
No
but
problem.
this is also fine.
ठीक है, ठीक है.
We are in your hands entirely.
नहीं, absolutely not. It is not.
my question is, Akhilesh, you were discussing that Portugal case. Now, suppose something like this comes up. So how does one sitting in India deal with a crime having been done over there, even if he's an Indian national or may not be an Indian national? How to deal with that?
Look, as far as the crime is concerned, there is no bar in lodging an FIR. The thing is that we have earlier there used to be a problem, but now we have cybercrime cells, proper cybercrime cells who have also technical aspects also. The people who are knowing the technology are specially appointed in those departments, and they are basically the highly qualified engineers. Because I came across like you know, it is in phase 7 Mohali, cybercrime cell Mohali, cybercrime cell Punjab.
Yes.
Is also in
Yes.
is also
Phase
in
5.
7 Mohali. Sorry.
No, phase 7. Phase
It
7 is there.
in phase 7 if I am not wrong.
करण के घर के पास ही
मेरे घर के पास था बिल्कुल साथ में.
करण के घर के पास है,
बट विशाल जी इज आल्सो राइट, वो उनका इन्वेस्टिगेशन सेल उधर बैठता है और आईजी उधर बैठता है, तो वो दोनों ऐसा कुछ है.
वो लाइट से राइट मुड़ते सारी है वो.
हाँ.
नहीं, बट आई थिंक अब शायद करण उन्होंने इकट्ठा कर दिया, बिकॉज़ इन वन ऑफ द
बड़ी
केसेस
बिल्डिंग
हाँ,
बना
because earlier उनका the IG was there, Kumar Vijay Pratap Singh, so he made everything in a combined manner. So अब उनके पास जाएंगे, you lodge an investigation, they have engineers, और वो इंटरनेट प्रोटोकॉल जो सर्वर है वो सिर्फ एक एस्पेक्ट है जिससे हमें लोकेशन का पता लग सकता है. Now they have proper technical tools which we all may not be aware of, obviously, because that is a technical part, not for us. So FIR can be lodged, and the benefit of section 2 can also be taken later on, Vishal ji, as far as this is concerned, because जहाँ तक मैं section 2 पढ़ पाया हूँ, the extent as far as I have concerned, because cyber crime में अपने सब चीज समझ ली, but the worst part is the jurisdictional aspect. The jurisdictional aspect is still open, it is still being discussed. As far as the territorial aspect is concerned, the territorial jurisdiction aspect is concerned.
That was exactly my next question, that how do you decide the jurisdiction where the FIR has to be lodged?
Because as far as like for example, I remember a case, I'll just quote the citation also. Rediff.com.
I'll give an example. Suppose
Yes.
Mountshut has his office in
Offices in
Gurgaon.
Hyderabad. Most of them have Hyderabad, Gurgaon, or
Hyderabad.
Bangalore, I tell you.
So, and you sitting in Chandigarh, what to do?
Yes. No, because the now the concept is that online world cannot be we cannot say कि a person has done a crime in Chandigarh, or he has done, or he's involved in Hyderabad, so the FIR will also be lodged in Hyderabad, because I am the aggrieved person sitting back here in Chandigarh or here in Punjab or in Haryana. So certainly I can go to the police authorities and I can get myself by making a statement, by tendering a statement. और उसी में एक case जैसे online shopping case था. If you understand the earlier Consumer Protection Act, in the earlier Consumer Protection Act, the online shopping concept was not included there earlier. But now they are including. But now in the new act they are including, and now they are. And for this, they have to change their jurisdiction paradigm also, for the reason earlier section 17 of that act specifically says that जहाँ पे opposite party का office होगा वहाँ पे आप जाके complaint करेंगे या उसका branch office होगा. Now in this case, अभी जो नया act आ रहा है उसके अंदर they say I might
Where
belong
one
also,
resides.
but जहाँ पे आप रहते हैं वहाँ पे भी आप उस चीज को कर सकते हैं. For the reason और एक ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग का केस था, rediff.com versus Urmil Munjal. This is also National Commission reported case, and this they say that online shopping, in this they explained the concept that if you have purchased something from Gurgaon and the head office of that e-commerce website is somewhere in Bangalore, it is not that you have to go to Bangalore to sue them. You can also sue them sitting back here in Gurgaon. So the site,
यहाँ पे लॉन्च कर सकते हैं. अभी मैं
हाँ,
कर रहा हूँ, उसमें कंप्लेनेंट है वो माली का रेजिडेंट है, उसने एफआईआर किया कि मेरे अकाउंट से पैसे निकाल लिए गए.
हाँ, yes.
और जो एक्यूज है वो यूपी में रहता है.
हाँ, यूपी में रहता है.
And my last question is that, like you did that case in the car dealers thing, that right to freedom, now Supreme Court having struck down that section 66AB whatever.
Yes.
66.
So what is the validity of that case, or how much can one pursue, having the Supreme Court having saying that it is a bar to freedom of speech and expression and all that? So does that actually mean that you can still sue the person for having said something on mouth shut or whatsoever?
No, he has taken the benefit of this also. As far as the judgment is concerned, the suit for damages for that particular person is still pending. That is under section 43, and for the suit for that is still pending for the compensation, because the ground which we took was that it took 4 months for us to get into the knowledge that somebody has written this on their blog, and we also involved mouthshut.com into it. But for that 4 months, there were almost 280 likes on that particular blog. So 280 people have read that or commented on that or liked that particular blog. So if that is the case, in that case, for
Defamation is anyway there.
Yes.
Defamation is anyway
Yes.
there.
In any
But
case,
criminal
defamation is still there.
prosecution under the IT Act would not be there.
No, absolutely
May
not.
not. I would say
But
it is
under
better.
but under 499, he cannot escape his liability.
Yes,
that is
IPC would definitely cover
Yes.
it.
Okay.
Is anybody having a question, or shall I ask?
Fire.
यार मैंने एक क्वेश्चन पूछना. हेलो,
Hello. हाँ जी सर.
सेक्शन 65B का आप बात कर रहे थे ना, सर्टिफिकेट सेकेंडरी एविडेंस में.
हाँ जी सर. इलेक्ट्रॉनिक रिकॉर्ड करना.
कैसे, मतलब सर्टिफिकेट जैसे एक मैंने केस किया था.
हाँ जी.
138 का 138 का केस मैंने किया था, उसमें उन्होंने ईमेल के साथ एफिडेविट
दो ही
लगा दिया
करें.
पार्टी का.
हाँ जी सर.
हाँ, वो एक एफिडेविट होता है.
इज दैट सफिशिएंट?
नहीं मैं बताता. नहीं सर, वो सफिशिएंट तो रहेगा, लेकिन
आई थिंक इट विल नॉट बी सफिशिएंट.
नहीं सर, नहीं.
वर्डिंग है.
नहीं, इट इज नॉट. पदम जी, सिर्फ उसकी ना डिफरेंशिएशन है, वो मैं बताता हूँ. देखो, 65B is 65A is the provisions related to the electronic evidence, but 65B is admissibility of the electronic record. अगर तो आप कोई फोटोग्राफ, कोई लाइव वीडियो बनाते हैं, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल देयर इज अ मर्डर हुआ है एक किसी गली में और किसी ने उसकी लाइव वीडियो बना ली है, और वो उसका आई विटनेस बन के उस मोबाइल को जिससे वो वीडियो प्राइमरीली बनी है लेकर आते हैं और उसे इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग में उससे बनाते हैं, उसका पार्ट बनाते हैं इन्वेस्टिगेशन में, देन इट बिकम्स अ प्राइमरी मोड ऑफ प्रूफ. बट इफ यू से that you take the snapshots or he has sent that video to some other person, और वो पर्सन आया है अपने मोबाइल को नहीं लेके आया है और उसको सीडी में कन्वर्ट करके लाया है, that in that case he has to produce a certificate under section 65B.
It would be a secondary evidence.
Yes, because हाँ, और यही कॉन्सेप्ट के लिए मैंने वो जो जजमेंट बोली ना, अनवर पीवी बशीर की जो जजमेंट है, अनवर पीके वर्सेस पीवी बशीर, दैट इज अ लैंडमार्क जजमेंट फॉर द रीजन कि अफजल गुरु के अंदर उन्होंने सेक्शन 65 में क्लियरली कह दिया था कि जी जो ये कॉन्सेप्ट आप लेकर आए हो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक एविडेंस का, दिस इज वेरी इजीली, अब इसको प्राइमरी एविडेंस में इसको ला सकते हो. But as far as Anwar PV Bashir came into picture and Sonu versus State of Haryana came, in this case Supreme Court held absolutely not. This is not the concept at all. And the contents of the certificate are also enumerated in section 65B. अगर आप सेक्शन 65B में देखें ना तो उसमें उसने कंटेंट है कि एफिडेविट में क्या-क्या लिखा है. हाँ, अभी फॉर एग्जांपल आई वाज आल्सो डूइंग
वो सर्टिफिकेट इशू कौन करेगा, मतलब जो वो एविडेंस लेके आ रहा है?
नहीं सर, नहीं, जो एविडेंस लेकर आ रहा है, लेकिन आपका उससे क्रॉस एग्जामिनेशन में पहला क्वेश्चन ये होगा कि आर यू द ऑथराइज्ड पर्सन. अब फॉर एग्जांपल अभी मैं केस कर रहा था, द केस वाज अगेंस्ट चोलामंडलम पर्सन केम एंड ही हैड टू प्रोड्यूस, इट बीइंग अ फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन, उनके पास अपना सारा अकाउंट स्टेटमेंट लेकर आए नेगोशिएबल इंस्ट्रूमेंट एक्ट केस में, एंड दे प्रोड्यूस्ड. सो आई आस्क्ड हु इज हैंडलिंग दिस रिकॉर्ड, बिकॉज एज ए क्लर्क और एज ए लीगल मैनेजर, ना तो क्लर्क की रिस्पांसिबिलिटी है अकाउंट्स हैंडल करना, ना लीगल मैनेजर की रिस्पांसिबिलिटी है. सर्टिफिकेट तो उसने फाइल कर दिया, बट उसने पूरे सर्टिफिकेट में लीगल मैनेजर ने कहीं पे भी ये चीज नहीं लिखी कि जो ये इलेक्ट्रॉनिक रिकॉर्ड मेंटेन्ड है, बनाया गया है,
अंडर माय कंट्रोल
है, and it was under my control, or this person so and so possesses the power and data, और उसके signatures के through मैं ये लेकर आया. So the authentication is missing. So as far as the authentication is missing, so it gave us a benefit, and later on, not only in this ground, on the other ground also, the person was acquitted, but this is one of the grounds of 65B. So 65B as a lawyer, I understand.
To add to this, can I add something?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Please.
So meaning what you are saying, जो हम जैसे सिविल करते हैं, जो भी करते हैं कि 65B की जो हम लगाते हैं सर्टिफिकेट, और मे बी एज अ रिस्पोंडेंट वी रिसीव दोस सर्टिफिकेट्स, दैट कैन ऑलवेज बी रिवर्टेड. दैट इज इट.
सॉरी, एक सेकंड सर, दोबारा बोलना. वेरी सॉरी, कम अगेन.
नहीं, मैं ये पूछ रहा हूँ कि जो 65B का हम सर्टिफिकेट लगाते हैं, तो मीनिंग देयर बाय कि इट कैन ऑलवेज बी रिवर्टेड कि दिस इज नॉट करेक्ट और ये समथिंग लाइक.
Absolutely. If you go by the contents of that, the contents of the affidavit are very technical in nature. ऐसे नहीं that
no. Technically we are I got it कि yes, you can always in cross exam, you can always put across these kind of questions. You are not authorized, and if I am not an authorized person, I will not be allowed to read this document in my evidence. That I got to know.
Absolutely. ठीक है जी, ठीक है.
That is it ना. अगर 65B का सर्टिफिकेट में मैं ऑथराइज पर्सन ही नहीं हूँ, तो मेरे को वो फिर एविडेंस में लीड नहीं, मैं पढ़ नहीं पाऊंगा. यही चीज होगी ना. बट मैं ये चीज पूछ रहा हूँ कि सपोजिंगली लाइंस आर देयर, एवरीथिंग इज देयर कि पर्सन वाज ऑथराइज्ड. ओके, मतलब मेरे को आज तक यही था, इट इज कंक्लूसिव, बट योर से
सर पहले कंक्लूसिव कर दिया गया था अफजल गुरु की जजमेंट में ना. मैं जो व्हाट्सएप के ग्रुप में ना तीनों साइटेशंस भेजूंगा आपको. 65B के ऊपर इन चीजों से बाहर लॉ नहीं है. आप 65B के ऊपर जजमेंट पढ़ना अफजल गुरु की, उसके अंदर उसने कंक्लूसिव कर दिया था. 65B दे दिया, भूल जाओ, खत्म, सर्टिफिकेट गिवन एंड गॉन. बट सब्सिक्वेंटली इन द केस ऑफ सोनू वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ हरियाणा एंड अनवर PV बशीर, उन्होंने कहा दैट दिस डॉक्यूमेंट इज आल्सो रिबटेबल इन नेचर एंड इट हैज टू.
वंडरफुल.
Sir, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
In fact, there is one more judgment of our High Court by Justice Kanan, which has been upheld by Supreme Court in case of Ramkishan Fauji. If Padamji must remember that case, Congress person who was याद आया पदमजी, रामकिशन फौजी वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ हरियाणा. हाँ. उसके अंदर जस्टिस कानन ने कि प्राइमरी एविडेंस नहीं है तो देयर आफ्टर ये सेकेंडरी एविडेंस का आया कि सेकेंडरी एविडेंस को आप एडमिसिबल नहीं कर सकते. ये तो बड़ा इजी है कि आप एक सीडी बनाओ और गवर्नमेंट कह दे कि ये सीडी सर्टिफिकेशन है और ये ठीक है बिल्कुल. देन द कोर्ट सेड कि ऐसे नहीं. बिल्कुल वही जजमेंट ना. बिल्कुल ठीक है. वो जजमेंट ना एक और हमारा केस था अपने हाई कोर्ट पे, जिसमें उसने सीडी को एविडेंस लेना है या नहीं लेना उसको बहुत अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन किया. वो मोहिंदर सिंह वर्सेस बलजीत सिंह. So that is 2014 PLR volume 4. I am sorry, I am not aware of which bench it was, but Mohinder Singh versus Baljeet Singh, and I'll share these citations specifically in the WhatsApp group also. It will just help you to study because codified form में आ जाता है तो यार याद रहता है. जैसे उस दिन करण जी का सुना तो वो arbitration का जो था वो दिमाग में रह जाता है कहीं ना कहीं, और you can call him and ask कि भाई क्या citation है. This is what I understand.